It's gonna get real ugly.
You're listening to PHP Ugly, episode 151, the birthday edition, the 50th birthday edition of PHP Ugly. I'm your host, John Congdon. With me, my good birthday friend, Eric Van Johnson.
Could you let a few more people know it's my birthday, John? Would that be possible?
Hey, if you didn't hear, yesterday was Eric's birthday.
I think going on a different podcast would let more people know.
And doom and gloom himself, Tom Rideout.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Oh my goodness. See, that was a good opening.
That was a great opening.
So Tom kicked it down a notch. Thanks.
My pleasure.
What have you guys been up to? I know Eric's been out for a couple days.
I have.
I think there was a birthday or something involved. Is that what it was?
I haven't heard anything about that.
A little birthday celebrating. May is a very important month in our family. It's my wife's birthday. It's my birthday. It's our wedding anniversary. There's a lot going on in May. So we have a tendency to just kind of bulk everything together and kind of just do, not necessarily for any one individual, but we kind of just do things throughout the month. And so, yeah, we drove up to LA yesterday. Man, I tell you what, I don't understand how people live up in LA. I don't understand how people get around in LA. The traffic up there is so horrendous.
I barely understand how you do it in San Diego still.
Yeah.
There's no traffic in San Diego. What are you talking about?
Especially if you don't get on the freeway, there's no traffic. But yeah, went up to LA. We went to a restaurant / grocery store that my wife absolutely loves called Italy. There's a couple in New York. I guess there's one in Chicago, and there's one in LA. So we did that. Actually, as it turned out, the timing worked out really well. I had a friend of the show, Matt Lance, was coming down. He was actually going to Joshua Tree for a wedding. And I know John just was at Joshua Tree recently.
Yep.
But he was coming down, but when he heard it was my birthday and he had heard the wife and I were going up to LA, he rearranged his schedule so that he was in LA. He basically came in a day early to LA, stayed the night there, and then they drove out to Joshua Tree today. So it was nice because we met up for lunch. I got to meet his new wife, and I'm trying to remember her name. It escapes me now. It's Cassandra. I was like, Apache, Cassandra, that's it.
I'm sure she'll love to hear how you remember her name.
So we spent the day with them, and then the weirdest thing happened. So we decided to stay the night up in LA, so we didn't have to drive down. It's only like a 3-hour drive, 2.5, 3-hour drive. It's really not that bad, but because we were celebrating, because we wanted to do some drinking, we just decided to stay up there the night. So we ended up driving over to Santa Monica and staying over in that area because I really like that area. As it turns out, we have a DiegoDev developer who lives in that area. So I mentioned to him on Slack, I'm like, hey, we're going to be in Santa Monica. Would you be interested in meeting up for breakfast this morning, the next day? He's like, yeah, sure. So when we left Matt and Cassandra, they were staying more downtown. They wanted to do some of the touristy things in downtown. But we mentioned, like, Santa Monica Pier is a big tourist thing, and Venice Beach is right over there. So if you're interested, come on over tonight, and we'll go, do dinner as well. But I'd forgotten that they flew in from the East Coast. Basically, they flew in from Toronto, and they were working off like an hour's sleep over the last 24 hours. So they went home, they went back to their hotel and went to sleep. So the next morning, this morning comes up, and we're meeting the developer, Keith, for breakfast. And my wife Beck asked me, she goes, "So we didn't hear from Matt and Cassandra?" I'm like, "Nah, they probably went to sleep or whatever," and didn't really think anything else about it. And we're walking to where we're having breakfast. It's only like a half mile from the hotel. We're walking to this restaurant. And my wife's like, is that Matt and Cassandra? And I'm like, what? And I'm looking down the street. And I don't have my glasses on. And I'm looking down the street. I'm like, it can't be them. Why would they be walking in the middle of Santa Monica? If anything, they'd be on the beach because that's where all the tourists are. We're like up with the restaurants and all. And all of a sudden, I see Matt point at me. I'm like, holy crap, it's them. And it was like the most random thing. We ran into them walking around Santa Monica. So we swooped them up. We go meet Keith at this restaurant. We have breakfast together. It was a good time. But I had a great time. It was great little way to celebrate birthday for, friends who actually care about me and want to spend time with me, as opposed to other people who take vacations so they don't have to see me and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yes, good birthday. Thank you very much. Big 50. I'm 50. So
Wow.
Eat it. Get there. Oh.
I just noticed. Is that why you're holding your shirt before? I wasn't even paying attention.
You didn't pick up on that?
No, I did not.
6'9", all original parts. Don't necessarily have all my parts, but what I do have, everything's original. So you were just at Joshua Tree, weren't you, John? What were you doing there?
Wife and I went and celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. So we went to Palm Springs, actually, and drove to Joshua Tree one day just to do a little hiking out there. Someplace that neither of us had been to before but have wanted to see. We went and checked it out. Had a blast.
Worth the drive?
Definitely. Can't wait to go back and do some more hiking because the national park is huge. It's ridiculously large. When we made the arrangements to go there, we're like, oh, it's only 45 minutes from Palm Springs. It's someplace that she's that's been on her list to see. So that's how we actually chose Palm Springs. And then when we actually chose a hike and put it in while we're in Palm Springs, no, it's an hour and a half to the hiking trail that we want to go to. So it was 3 hours of driving, about 3 hours of hiking, but it was a really good time. We were so happy we did it.
Oh.
And then we did other hikes in Palm Springs, literally down the street from our hotel. We were able to go up in the mountains right there. Again, do another, I think, 3-mile hike. Took about 2.5 hours. Really nice steep inclines. It was great. But I have a funnier story. Good.
Well, ironically enough, my daughter Alyssa was actually in Palm Springs the night before.
Oh, really?
She was supposed to stay there. She was supposed to stay there through the weekend. So I told her, I'm like, there's a chance you might run into John and Jackie. Just act like you don't know them.
That would have been funny.
What's your funnier story?
So my wife is very particular about hotels. So let's be real. 10 times out of 10, she books the hotel. And she chose one. She did a bunch of research, reviews, and she goes, it's a little different than I'd normally pick. It's, it's a little brighter, blah, blah, blah. We get there and we're like, yeah, this is a little crazy. There's people, younger people walking around drinking as we're checking in.
Oh God.
Get into the room, and it's way smaller than you would expect. And we have a pool view room, which you couldn't see the pool at all the way it's set up. So it's ridiculous that they call it a pool view room. Beside the point.
Why would you want to see the pool?
It's not that we wanted to, but they called it a pool view room.
Yeah.
And then while we're getting ready, we're like, okay, we're just going to go relax by the pool. That's all we really want to do in Palm Springs. You can hear the music just blaring from the pool. We get down there, not a place to sit. The pool is packed with people. You would think it was a Vegas pool party. There was just everyone drinking. It was just ridiculous. So we're like, completely out of our element. Are we going to stay here? What are we doing? Yeah, we hightailed it out of there. I went and talked to the front desk. I'm like, yeah, what's your refund policy? And, he asked me what's wrong. I'm like, yeah, this isn't our scene.
Too many young people. Yeah, man. I get it.
Just wait until your kids turn into those young people.
I'm having dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon now, man. I understand. I understand.
Yeah, how am I supposed to get to bed at 8:30 with all this racket?
It was such a great getaway, though. We were so happy to be out for a few days.
I'm trying to get our little active speaker thing going here. So, how about you, Thomas? What are you up to?
Well, after 3 months in the making, I finally gave my presentation on GraphQL.
Oh yeah, that's right. I missed an SDPHP meetup too. Damn it.
Yeah, it was an okay turnout for our meetup. It was 6 people, I believe. But the interesting thing was when I got there, the first thing the guy running the meetup, Brian, said was, "Hey, how do you feel about taking over the meetup?" And I said, "I don't know. I'd have to talk to my wife about that. That's an obligation."
Aren't you already one of the organizers?
I was helping out. I was doing little things, but I wasn't like doing the communication with the group that buys the pizza, and I wasn't dealing with the website or anything. I was just advising mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But he's moving.
Oh, really?
He quit his job and got a new job and is moving out to Arizona. So I don't think he's going to make the drive.
Slacker.
The kitty litter box of the U.S., Arizona. I should say that. Arizona's a nice enough place for some people.
Yeah, if you like it. I don't.
I can't get these windows. These windows are all over the place. If anybody else out there uses your OBS and can tell me the secret of keeping a window once you resize it from whacking out on me, I would appreciate that very much. Yeah, I'll go back to our standard view.
So, besides that, everything went pretty well. I was happy with the presentation. It came out to just exactly an hour. Some good people showed up, had some good conversations.
I tell you, if you have GraphQL, if you have a talk within an hour range, if you could shave maybe 10 minutes off of it, that's a conference talk there, man. You can start submitting. You probably need at least one more good talk to submit, but that's a good talk, man. You should think about putting that together and submitting to some conferences. I know PHP World
I was thinking about it, but
PHP World.
It was daunting enough after 3 months of preparation to stand up and do it. I don't know that I want to do that again. I mean, it's not a topic that I'm an expert in, and I left out a lot of intermediate and advanced stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. I definitely loved using it.
What's the future of Colorado Springs PHP meetup, though?
I think I'm going to take it over and cut down the frequency just for my own sanity's sake. Maybe do bi-monthly or tri-monthly.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of people, and it's not a very enthusiastic crowd.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to see how that pans out. But I'll definitely do something with it, I think. Maybe just the annual peak PHP meetup. Now, I have a correction to issue. We were talking about the short closures last week.
We were, yeah. That was a big topic.
And upon listening back to the podcast while editing it, I realized I got the scope stuff completely wrong.
Don't you hate that about editing? It drives me crazy when I edit and I hear myself say something wrong, which is quite frequently, actually. I'm
Well,
like, oh man.
it wasn't the worst thing I had done last week's podcast. I also changed my opinion halfway through a sentence and claimed that I was just being devil's advocate. But in fact, I was completely contradicting myself.
Which topic was that?
This was about the removal of short tags,
Oh,
short opens.
Yeah.
But the way the scope works upon a second reading for the short closures is that everything that is made available to the scope is passed by variable, not passed by reference. So you can access a variable defined outside of the short closure, but you cannot change it outside the closure. It's a totally different instance of the variable.
You mean inside the closure?
Yes. Inside the closure, you can access the variable, you can modify it, but it won't modify the original globally scoped version.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember us talking about that. And
So that'll save some headaches for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So again, you don't have to pass the individual variables into the closure. They're accessible to you, but they're immutable outside of the closure, right? Like you can change
Right.
inside the closure, but outside the closure, it's still the same.
Right.
Gotcha.
And defining new variables within the closure will not define them out of the closure.
Gotcha. That's important to know.
Yes. So it's essentially the same as we use closures now, except that you can't pass by reference even if you want to, from what I can tell.
I thought.
Which I like anyways.
Scroll back down, Eric. I could have sworn I just saw that you could.
Tell me where to stop.
References are allowed. Scroll back up a little bit.
References are allowed both for an argument as.
Both,
Oh, that's
both
an
for
ugly
arguments
syntax, isn't it?
and as return values.
So Thomas needs to issue another correction.
Don't do that. Don't do what they show you how to do.
You're asking for trouble if you do, but
how do you pass? I don't see an example of them passing it in though.
It's an ampersand in front of the $sign. So that's the return.
Right, that's the return.
And then ampersand in front of the variable would be passed by reference as a variable.
Okay.
But
Hideous.
like you said, don't do it. Asking for trouble.
Go.
As Eric mentioned, we had SDPHP last night, and we had a really good turnout. We had.
Just rub it in.
Yeah, I will. Well, it's also way better than our normal crowd. So I think we had 25 people.
Wow.
Handful. We had like 3 or 4 brand new people that hadn't been there before. One guy actually, on the second Wednesday of every month, drives to Poway for a different meetup.
No kid. What meetup do they have in Poway?
I forget what it is. He's a drafter by trade. And I didn't really clarify. He just said in his role he has picked up PHP recently, so he's not in tech per se. He's using PHP because a lot of people are using Excel and there's a lot of copy and paste, so he's trying to centralize all the data into a database. And PHP is basically just his gateway from the web front end to the database.
Mm-hmm.
So the topic last night was way over his head.
What was the topic?
Frank Wallen did a presentation on event sourcing.
Oh yes, Frank would know. Frank has been doing a lot of event sourcing lately.
Yeah, and he did an awesome job. He's got a really good speaking style to a crowd. Very laid back, very conversational when talking. One thing he does a lot, which is I find funny, is his glasses on and off. So looking at the screen, his glasses on. As soon as he starts talking, it's off. And like I was totally consumed by his move of glasses off, click on his the armbands, and then 2 seconds later, open it back up, put them on.
Well, I happen to know that he does practice some very effective relaxation techniques before speaking.
Does he? He did a great job, and it was a good turnout. Like I said, that guy that was a new developer, he didn't know what event sourcing was, and the topic just way over his head. He was. I think he left very confused.
That's always one of the challenges with the meetups is, you want to offer enough for advanced developers, but also the new people, and trying to find that balance, especially when you're only meeting once a month. Trying to find that balance can really be challenging.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I remember when we had 2 meetups. We went the downtown and then the North County meetup. We tried to balance which one was the advanced one and which one was the beginner level one, and even trying to do that then it didn't pan out well. It was just too hard to organize. This one's for advanced people.
Yeah.
And location is tricky because San Diego's so spread out. So trying to get a consistent user base is not easy. But like I said, happy with the turnout. Good overall discussion. Good time.
That was actually one of the things I did like about the Laravel meetup. When we had the Laravel meetup, we had a pretty consistent crowd. Like it always seemed like it was the same people, plus or minus a couple new people.
Yeah, it was the DiegoDev employees plus or minus 2 people.
He's got a point.
Okay, screw you guys. That's right, because DiegoDev hired all the Laravel developers and all the good Laravel developers in San Diego.
I did have a good conversation with one of the people who attended about my use of and dislike for Laravel at this point. And he was absolutely shocked that Laravel doesn't follow Semver, and couldn't believe it. And I had to give him examples of backwards breaking minor revisions and patch revisions and rollbacks of patches that broke stuff. And I'm so done. I'm so done with the ecosystem.
Yeah, we have a potential new client reaching out to us about upgrade paths, and we're going to probably do some evaluation for them just to kind of give them an idea of what they're really up against. Because like you said, it's not as clear cut, and there are a few. I believe there are a few versions behind, including a major version behind. So this should be interesting to kind of discuss with them to really help them put in perspective what's on the road ahead of them.
Saw a tweet from Taylor this week too. Said that he saw somebody putting final on one of their migration classes, and that they really drank all the PHP Kool-Aid by doing that.
Okay.
And I just thought, what a dick thing to say about a force of habit. Like, you're supposed to be in the habit of declaring your classes final. We've talked about it.
Have you ever done that? I've never used final. Yeah,
I've never done it, but it's the arguments for doing it make sense. It's not a bad thing to do, and it's just a slight tweak to your coding style that doesn't impact anything negatively, really.
Mm-hmm.
But
so,
people.
Can you give listeners an example of where you'd use final?
You would want to use final if you were writing something that had business logic in it that needed to be assured that it wouldn't be extended out of correct functionality. So if you're calculating your taxes, your tax class should definitely be final. You don't want someone saying, well, I need to use the tax class, but I don't like the way it handles it for California. That's business logic. That's not your decision. And there have been arguments in the past about making almost all of your classes final because it's your intention for those to be the endpoints of that logic. Most of the work we're doing is business logic, so it should be final classes. And unless you're writing a library, that you intend, unless you intend for something to be extended, it should be final. So that's the whole logic behind final by default, is that if you don't put final by default, you're saying that this is extensible by default, and nothing I do is extensible by default unless it's a specific traits for searching and stuff like that. So it's just something that you're supposed to get into the habit too, because it helps reinforce the intentions behind what you were doing in the first place.
And the idea is another developer takes over a code base or works within a code base. They understand this is the end of the line. Like the code you can't extend the code anymore from here.
Right. As does the IDE. The IDE, if you're using final, is going to have helpers that make sure that stuff that shouldn't show up doesn't show up, or stuff that shouldn't be extended throws red flags. So it's a good habit to get into, and yeah, no one is going to be extending your migration, but that's why you should put final on your migration, because no one should extend a migration.
And who doesn't want to drink some Kool-Aid?
Yeah, Kool-Aid's delicious.
Who doesn't like Kool-Aid? Yeah, exactly.
Also, for accuracy's sake, the whole drink the Kool-Aid term is a misnomer. It's a reference to the Jim Jones cult.
Yeah.
And they very specifically did not drink Kool-Aid. They drank a store brand drink.
Technicality. Cool.
Well, if we're talking about a post being pedantic, I might as well be pedantic about the pedantic reference.
Okay.
What was also with his other tweet about Voltron or whatever?
Venom, Vapor,
Vulture.
I was closer with my Venom reference than you were. We're not going to talk about Vapor.
Good.
There's nothing to talk about. I stated last year. I'm not gonna feed into this hype engine that they try to build around an unknown product. So it's whatever he's releasing in Laracon. They're trying to build up some hype around it.
He's calling it Vapor, as in vaporware.
You know what? Now that I say it out loud, I might be wrong on that.
It doesn't matter. Sorry, I brought it up. We can move.
Yeah, on. I really have not been following it at all, to be completely honest with you.
That's one reason I'm still not a big fan of Laracon. I'd much rather go to Tech or one of the other conferences.
Yeah, I'm so torn on that. I enjoy Laracon more for the people I interact with. The talks I can kind of take or leave, like especially like last year or maybe the last couple of years. I've noticed like it seems to be fewer and fewer Laravel focused talks at Laracon, which I don't know, not a fan of. I am where again you talk about correcting yourself, Thomas, earlier. Where I used to be a huge fan of the single track approach that Laracon has, I've definitely started not liking it anymore because again, so many talks is just like I don't care about this talk. I understand. This is one of the Laravel elite, and people want they want to hype this person up or whatever. I don't care what this person has to say anymore. They're not.
Yeah.
They're, talking about some random thing. And that's the thing. It's like with Laracon is also, I think they have call for papers. I'm pretty sure they have call for papers, but they also have their standard speakers as well, where the speakers will even say, "Oh, Taylor, asked me what I was going to talk about at Laracon this year, so I had to come up with something." It's like, dude, if you don't want to talk at Laracon, then don't talk at Laracon. Why don't you? There's plenty of people doing things in the community that have a lot to contribute. Let them come and talk about what they're doing. But so yeah, I'm the single track is getting to be a struggle. But the people I enjoy more, and I don't know why that is, because the people at PHP Tech, at PHP World, at just about any PHP conference are all very welcome, very open. I don't know. I have more connections. There are people I look forward to seeing at Laracon, like again Sean and Matt from LaraChat, and JMac, we'll run into, and Frick, and all these people who I've built up somewhat of a relationship with, and that's like the one time of year I see them. So I don't know. That just seems to have formulated more for me with Laracon than the other conferences. But I also haven't gone to any other conference as consistently as I've gone to Laracon. So I don't know. I like Laracon. I still like Laracon. I won't apologize for it anymore, John. Piss off. So, what about you, Tom?
How do you guys feel about Microsoft?
Again,
Yeah, exactly.
Coming around. I'm coming around on it.
Two big things. This week they launched their new Windows terminal.
Okay.
The
Let's talk about that one. I was going to. You linked to a video, Thomas.
I did.
Share a video. I mean, I can share a video. It doesn't matter. But
do it. I dare you.
What do you mean you dare me? What's the dare?
I don't know.
It's Thomas we're talking about. You never know what he links to.
Well, this is true. You really don't. What happened? Oh, I lost my emac. I lost my little thing here. There we go.
So the first interesting thing is, of course, they released it on GitHub. So
this is available now. This is what I wasn't clear about. This new terminal is available now.
Yep, available right now. It's on the Windows Store, which, that's garbage. But besides that, it's available for download. The source code is available, and it supports the standard Windows console as well as PowerShell, PowerShell Core, Ubuntu WSL, OpenSUSE WSL, and Debian WSL. So you can just switch between environments on tabs in their terminal. It's very pretty.
That is pretty
fancy.
Cool. Yeah.
But it's Linux. It's this whole WSL thing that we've kind of brushed on in the past, and they need to do more research before we talk about it at length. But I'm very curious in the direction that Windows is going. Microsoft seems to be saying Windows is not our product anymore. Windows is a thing that we make, but it's not what Microsoft is.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the Windows division of Microsoft was disbanded a while back. So there is no...
did not know that.
Yeah, there is no Windows division of Microsoft. It's a software development division that handles Windows as well as many other projects, but it's not a just Windows division anymore. This has allowed this kind of project to develop, because when somebody in the Windows department said, I've got an idea for a new terminal that fits all these needs that people have been asking for, they were told they can't because secondary applications are handled by a different department, and there aren't enough developers currently available to work on that. So we need you to keep working on this core feature set that we don't really care about and sucks. And with the disbanding of the Windows department, they've expanded to the number of developers that are supporting Windows applications as well as the Windows system itself. It's been crazy. And this combines with their purchase of GitHub and their embracing of the open source environment, including the WSL, and then at another level, virtual machine support with direct access to the kernel being baked into Windows Server. They're really turning directions.
Yeah, it's fun. I so remember. Yeah, this was years ago when Windows was the desktop, and before OS X or OS 10, and everybody pretty much used Windows across the board. And I was still, plugging along with my little Linux installs. and having an argument with a friend who didn't understand the power of the command line. And they understood the power of the command line, but they were like, they were pretty adamant about the fact 5 years from now there will be no more command line terminal on a system. Everything is GUI. Everything is GUI. Nothing you should do in the system should not have a GUI interface to it. And I mean, for years, I thought he was right from Windows. I'm like, Windows is going to do away with the command line. I felt like, not that it was ever very powerful in Windows, and not that anybody ever used it, but I thought for sure that they were going to. I agreed with him. I'm like, I think you're right. I think I can see Windows removing a terminal, but now to see it come like now to see the emphasis that Windows is putting on this terminal now, and how many people are embracing it, I mean, you have a whole another segment of system users who are starting to understand the power of learning command line commands and what they can do, and it's really cool, man. I'm happy how this has played out.
And not just that, but it's interesting to me that you can just open a tab that gives you an Ubuntu VM that has access to the same file system as the Windows machine that's currently running, and you can do all the Ubuntu stuff that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You're not reliant on there being a Windows build of something that you need. You can now start running the Linux development version of Perl or PHP or whatever. You can do some incredible stuff, and it makes me.
When are you getting your Windows machine?
I think I'm going to ask for a Windows license for this machine that I did get next week.
There you go, man.
Because I want to try this out. It makes sense, and I'm having a terrible time with this laptop still.
It should make running Docker a lot easier too, right? Because I always hear problems with Docker on Windows.
Yeah, Docker on Windows now is just there. It has direct kernel level access. It's actually incredibly fast. It's very smooth.
I wish they would change their mount points. I wish they'd do away with the whole, ACD thing.
Nobody uses A anymore. Come on.
That's true. Hey, man, did I mention I'm 50 years old now? 50.
Yeah. Do you have any of those 3D printed save buttons within arm's reach?
Huh?
The save icon?
Save icon? What are you talking about?
There's plenty of young developers out there who, upon seeing an actual floppy disk, think it's like a coaster designed to look like the save icon.
Was it 1.4 megabytes of raw data, baby?
1.44 if you're lucky, baby.
That's right. Slackware was like 25 disks, man.
Used to backing up, inserting new disks every few minutes.
50 years old. I remember this.
There's a brewery in North Park I like to go to, and they have floppy disks on the wall. It's just a wall full of them, kind of like wallpaper.
Hey, they're gonna make a comeback like vinyl.
Yeah.
I love just the purity of the sound of an MP3 playing through a diskette.
You hear the buzzing. Zzz, 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 zzz.
Yeah.
No, the zip disk would come back first.
I love the zip
disk with the click of death.
Yeah, I love the zip disk. That was a game changer, man. The zip disk. And then what was the Jazz drive? Zip disk, and then the Jazz drive was a gigabyte. The zip was 100 megs, I think. Yep. The Jazz drive was a gigabyte.
There was an intermediary one that was the size of your head. It was a disc this big. The other big thing for Microsoft this week is that they're launching their.
Who's excited? I said, who's excited about this? Go ahead. Sorry.
Visual Studio Online. an online code editor intended to streamline the local to remote development process.
So, if you recall correctly, we discussed a few shows back about they released how you can run Visual Studio Code on a server, and we were talking about it, and we were talking about the pros and cons of it, right? Let me pull that up here. Here we go. About the pros and cons of like a shop like we have onboarding developers, and those developers now being able to do productive development using something like a Chromebook, or being able to standardize on that tool now by having them log in. And the issue I had with the Visual Studio Code, we didn't implement it because it looked like it was like a one-to-one deployment. Like you deployed it, it opened up a port, you assigned a username and password to that port, and it was one person can use it. There weren't multiple people. But it made it very clear that this was possible. So I figured it was only a matter of time before somebody launched it. And I'm really happy to see it was Microsoft that did it, because who else would you want, releasing something like this, but the creator
Are you
themselves?
talking about this year or 5 years ago? Because 5 years ago, I would have said, screw Microsoft, I hate them.
I know. No, I'm talking about
it's
now.
bizarre world.
So this is a full-fledged, and I didn't read this article. I actually just saw this article when I was queuing up the stuff for the show today. So I haven't seen this article, haven't read this article, but assuming that this relates to the stuff we already know, I assume it follows the same standards of you can all the same plugins, the same themes, the same workflows, everything can be implemented here. So this is big, man. This is really big.
There's something else implemented here too, though.
What's that?
They've implemented at some point this week IntelliCode. Have you seen this at all?
IntelliCode's been there, I thought. Has IntelliCode not always been part of Visual Studio?
IntelliCode was IntelliSource. Oh God, I lost my article. IntelliSense. And it was included in Visual Studio, but not Visual Studio Code. So it's now available in Visual Studio Code, and it supports Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, and Python. And it is an AI-assisted programming aid. It says here that Microsoft has trained it by feeding it the code of thousands of open source projects from GitHub that have at least 100 stars.
Interesting.
And I believe the biggest implication here is that when you want to do something and you don't have a library that can do that, IntelliCode will figure out that you're trying to do something and suggest a library and how to use it.
And this is available in VS Code in general, or just the online version?
This is available in VS Code in general and should be available in the online version once the online version leaves the private testing stage.
So I just clicked on the link there. So yeah, Visual Studio is even going to include the live share function that we were raving about not long ago. Wow. Do we know if there's going to be a cost associated to this?
It doesn't appear to be, because it's under the VS Code brand, which is the free brand.
Browser-based web companion. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about cost. Wow, that's going to be huge. I really think this is a big deal, because my development tools are one of the things that keep me tied to a real system. And I've always said that I would never give up my laptop, because I will always need development tools, and there'll never be good enough development tools online. And Visual Studio Code could change my opinion on that.
Yeah, I'm excited to try this out. I liked what I saw in Visual Studio Code, and I mean, I feel like I owe Microsoft an apology and another try. Also, like thousands of dollars.
I'm excited to see how your transition works here, Thomas. Especially with the hardware. Like, I'm curious. I'm really curious how big of a difference you see in the hardware just between Ubuntu, I believe, is what you're running currently,
Yes.
and Windows. So if Windows still to this day is agile enough to just take on any hardware that's thrown at it and optimize the OS for it. So it's been so long since I've used it. I really don't even know what that's like anymore.
I'll let you know when I find out. I want to give it a shot. So we'll see. I will tell you one of the things I discussed last week is I was having some issues with Synergy, and I believed that it was just some I/O issues or some locking issues. And I was looking that stuff up today and found that somebody forked the original Synergy project and is dedicated to maintaining it in its original scope. Not the Synergy 2 feature set, not trying to sell anything. They're just maintaining and releasing a classic Synergy, if you will. And it's called Barrier.
Barrier?
So if you search for Synergy Barrier on Google, you'll find the GitHub page for it. They use Flatpak for distribution.
Wow. So there's another technology we haven't talked much about, Flatpak.
This is the first I've heard of it, and apparently they switched over to Flatpak like weeks ago.
Interesting. And this is meant to run on Windows and OS X as well.
Windows OS X, Linux FreeBSD.
And so, what is Flatpak? I have not heard of it yet.
So, go ahead, Thomas. I'll let you explain it.
I believe that it is a universal package manager that is platform agnostic. So you can release a version of something that is Windows, Linux, and OS X, and Flatpak on each of those versions will specify what OS it's running, and Flatpak will say, okay, here's the version you should install, and install it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it does more than that too. I think it actually runs like they're almost like Docker installs where they're running in their own namespace, right? Everything is like sandboxed.
You're putting me in a corner here.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, you're allowed to say I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah. I'd heard about it in passing. I know it's real big in some of the Linux communities because, like you said, it was supposed to be this easier way to distribute packages, and but yeah, I don't know enough about it, so I should probably not talk about it.
There's a lot of very popular projects that are distributed via Flatpak. GIMP, LibreOffice, Minecraft, if you believe that, Inkscape, Blender.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much like a standard now. Like whoever's managing that project, whenever applications get created, it's something that you can package up yourself. It's pretty easy to do, or they'll reach out to the developer and say, hey, yeah, don't lose this distribution stream. Let me explain to you how to make this a Flatpak. But I didn't realize it could run on other OSs. That was the only thing I thought it was a Linux specific thing. So I have to do more. Obviously, need to do more looking into it.
Yeah, and they have a flathub.org site, which acts as the sort of senior repository, similar way that Packagist works. So if you're looking for something to be, to use Flatpak, search there first. It's cool.
Oh. All right. What else we got?
You want to talk about the newly accepted RFC for PHP 7.4?
I mean, we've been talking development, man. Why the hell not? Very proud. I'm really proud of the direction the show's taken.
Do you guys know about the spread operator?
I have heard of it. I do not know enough about it.
I have not even heard of it. What is a spread operator?
This actually goes into something I dealt with today.
The dot, right?
Yeah, so if you're defining a function, you can define the arguments as ... and then a variable name, and the person calling the function can pass in an unlimited number of arguments that way that gets assigned to that array.
I've used it. I always forget the name of it.
It's more commonly called argument unpacking, but this new RFC applies it to defining arrays. Previously, if you have two arrays, you would have to do an array merge, or what I do, which is an array addition. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen that.
Yes, you can actually literally do a plus between arrays.
Yeah, so if you do a plus between arrays, it'll just merge them together. And I use that for defining options in a dropdown all the time, where I have my default option, which is please select an option. And then I have the options that are generated dynamically by accessing the database.
And it's supposed to be more efficient than actually using array merge for some reason.
Yeah, for some small tokenization definition thing, I don't know. But now, when you're defining an array, the example they give here is they've created an array that says parts equals array apple and pear. And then fruits equals array banana, orange, and then ... parts, and then watermelon. And what this will result in is inserting the first array right into the second array, right where you've defined it. So it will read banana, orange, apple, pear, watermelon. Previously, there was literally no way to inject into the middle of an array in this way.
Well, there is. You just need to make banana, orange its own array, watermelon its own array, and merge them together.
Right. So you would have to have three.
Yeah.
You'd have to have 4 arrays as your final value versus 2.
Right.
It's pretty slick. But the bigger thing that it has over array merging or plus is that it allows use of iterable interfaces as well. So if you have an object that returns a default iterable type, then you can just drop that object into an array and it will become part of it as its array values.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is just an RFC, right? I mean, they're just putting this up for vote, or
it's passed its vote today, literally today, and is going to be in 7.4.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
I don't believe the code has been merged in yet because voting ended hours ago. But there's a pull request. It'll be merged in probably in 2 or 3 days. And for me, this is nice because when I've been doing work with the iterables that come out of Laravel collections, you have to say to array if you're going to use the plus method that I use. And now I don't have to do that. Now I can just say open array default value ... the collection close value, and that's the whole thing.
Are you sure I don't think you'll be able to do that.
Absolutely, because it will be called as an iterable interface instead of as an object. The plus sign doesn't try to call it as an iterable interface. It tries to add 2 things together, and if they're both arrays, then it will be able to do it.
I'm gonna have to see that work. That would be very cool if it does work that way.
It's gonna work that way, and it's it's going to clean up a fair amount of my admin interface code for sure.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool. That'll be cool.
And
Okay.
I'm just generally so excited about all of the RFCs getting approved, all of the new stuff that's going to advance PHP. I mean, it feels like we're moving at breakneck speed right now. Having grown up, I mean, this is my 20th year of developing in PHP.
We're getting some feedback. People are feeling like you're too happy, Thomas. That your doom and gloom has left the show, and people are upset about this.
I'm not one of those people.
I did notice that.
Maybe I could interject some doom and gloom here. No, I really don't think this is doom and gloom, but I do want to ask an opinion.
I'll turn it on you.
No. I don't think you will. All right, that's a challenge. We'll see how it goes. But we are approaching an hour. We're doing a good job at keeping our little shows nice and tight now. So I want to continue. I know you guys are big fans of a video game that we've talked about in the past many times, and they were recently bought by another company, Epic, the creators of Fortnite. So Fortnite purchased Rocket League. Opinions, thoughts?
I'll say my first opinion is that people are assholes. So of course they're review bombing it on Steam.
If you watch the latest in games and watch Fortnite, people are assholes. They're very clear on that. People were comment bombing it on Steam. What's that?
The Steam review is a collective system, and people get upset about company policies or things like that, so they start bombing the reviews on the product. And I mean, the thing is, people are upset because the Epic Store is good for developers, but it's bad for players.
Right, because things like Fortnite it's not on Steam.
Right. But the big deal is that Epic takes 12% of all revenue for things sold on their store, whereas Steam takes in the area of 25 to 35% of all revenue. So that's how Epic has been pulling people over to their side. The issue, though, is that Steam is an old and feature-rich platform, and the Epic platform is not feature-rich. It's missing a ton of content. A ton of functionality.
So you're bringing this up because Rocket League is currently on Steam.
Correct. Psyonix,
but Steam only accounts for a small percentage of their users.
Right. Their other platforms are Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. But the features that are on Steam are the reason that people like Steam. The big one being cloud saves, which means that if I uninstall a game from my computer and then reinstall it, then my save data comes back. I'm back on the same level I was on in the first place. I don't lose anything. On the Epic Store, if you delete and then reinstall, you've lost all your local progress. The way that Epic handles achievements and reviews and all that kind of stuff is not great. And people are upset that part of Epic is owned by a Chinese corporation, Tencent, which makes everybody wonder what data they're collecting, what they're doing with it, and that kind of stuff. But the reality is the business of video game development is cutthroat and horrifyingly bad, and studios that make amazing stuff close down all the time, and people become unemployed by the hundreds all the time. And Epic buying Psyonix means that those people are going to have jobs, that the Psyonix studio is safe for a good amount of time, and that they're under the direction of a company that has known what it's doing for decades. And it's not out of the blue. Psyonix worked with Epic, which generates the Unreal Engine as well in the past. So this isn't Psyonix's first interaction with Epic. They've worked with Epic for a long, long time. And Epic saw that there was a revenue stream that they could tap into and that's what they're doing. Now, we have a friend who works for Psyonix, but I haven't reached out to him yet and asked him what he thinks is going on and what it's going to be like. I know he's working on the Chinese division of the game, which has had issues.
Sure, you're supposed to be talking about that.
If there were a thing, I don't believe there is.
yeah. I actually went to the ball game with him this week, and yeah, he gave me his feedback. Basically he shared a lot of things with me. I'm not sure what I can share and what I can't share, but the one thing he shared with me is he personally is excited about it. A lot of people at Psyonix they're all excited about it. They all see it as a win.
Yeah, absolutely. For the company, it is a win. It means money for them, and it also means future projects and licenses that they might not necessarily have access to before. If you want to buy a license for a game that's going to make $1 billion, you have to fork over $10 million just to be able to use that character.
Yeah.
And
some of the interesting things. Some of the interesting things, if you're a fan, or if you're somebody who's been, on the outskirts thinking about it, some of the interesting things that to keep an eye out for and to take in consideration. And again, I'm not sharing anything. I'm not telling you any conversation we did or did not have. But some of the things that to take consideration is Epic. Their big thing is Fortnite. It's a huge platform for them. Everybody's heard of Fortnite, and Fortnite is free. Currently, Rocket League is a paid product. So how does that play out in the future is going to be interesting.
Well, it will be free. I can tell you that.
They announced that?
No, but
I don't believe anything you say.
Because I'll tell you, one of Epic's main platform appeals is that every month they release a game that is on their platform for free. And with this acquisition, they have a timeline for ending sales on the Steam store by the end of 2019 and starting sales in the Epic store in 2020. And the revenue model for Rocket League right now is based off of the Rocket Pass sales. They're making more money off of that than they made off of sales of the game. The game was $30, and a monthly Rocket Pass is $10. So if you're playing it for 3 months, you bought the game again. Epic loves this model. That's why Fortnite is free, and this model fits perfectly in with releasing Rocket League for free on the Epic store. So I would be amazed if they charged money for Rocket League. Yeah.
I think the whole Steam relationship is going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on as well, and to see what comes of that. I think that is actually. I don't think there's a real clear path on anything that's been discussed yet for that. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, like I said, the people at Psyonix seem super excited about it. Our friend seems really happy about it, and I'm happy for him. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, like I said, I just think that the people are assholes, especially as consumers. They just want something to complain about. But I think this is a win-win for everyone involved. It's been on Steam for 3 years. Like, if you didn't buy it, why didn't you buy it? Why do you care? You either own it now or you don't care.
Exactly.
And it will still be supported on the Steam store too. They'll still have all the functionality. It literally won't affect you.
All right, I think this is a good spot. I think we had a good show. What do you say? We wrap it up? Episode 151?
Wrap it up. In the can.
There we go,
in the can. Not in the can.
In the can.
In the can. We're done. Did you have something else, Thomas?
No, I've got nothing. I think this
okay.
is a great place to kill it.
All right, episode 151.
No, don't kill it.
I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it
ugly.
It's music playing. I am not going to forget to put my recording in the folder today because I do
Start
not
recording.
I don't want to come back to the office.
Clap check.
That was this one actually, this might be a Thomas write-out edit that's under an hour, because that whole recording length was an hour 6.
Oh, fuck.
What's wrong? What just happened? You didn't start recording.
No, not that bad. You just reminded me why it took 3 hours to edit this podcast last week.
Why did it take 3 hours? It took 3 hours to edit the podcast?
Yeah, it did.
Actually, that's not too bad. It takes me at least 2. Why did it take 3 hours?
I'm recording at 44,100 hertz. You guys are recording at 48,000.
So you have a drift?
Yep, I have a drift every 10 minutes.
That sucks.
So, I mean, if you saw the project file for last week's episode, it's spliced on my end every 10 to 15 minutes and just adjusted by half a second, because our back and forth was so quick last week that you couldn't tell. You would respond to something before I said it just by a quarter second, and it just got frustrating.
That's so painful. Yeah, that's so painful. I hate that.
I might be able to re-encode at the higher rate.
Just your stream? Do you think that would work?
I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try exporting it at the higher rate and see if it re-encodes correctly. God damn it! I totally forgot.
I don't think we have any live viewers anymore. Matter of fact, I actually meant to hop onto YouTube and see if anybody's even watching. Nobody's in Discord anymore talking to us.
I know, we've gotten boring.
I know, we're talking about coding stuff now. Yeah.
What's your export? Do you know what your hertz is on your export? Is it 4,800 or 48,000?
I don't. How do I tell? I don't know.
I don't know what software you're on. Let me see if I can export to 48,000.
I'm on Mac OS.
Oh, Eric, you're funny.
Dude, had a good time up in LA, man. Oh, good time. Did some drinking.
Bit rate 256K.
4,800. Sample rate 4,800. Or 48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the auto.
You're on 4,800 too, John. I confirm that.
Dude, episode 151, man. Holy crap, dude.
Yeah, you can tell that my Paxil's really kicking in. I've got no doom and gloom at all.
Is that why?
Yeah, I've with all the stuff going on with my son, I've had to take a lot of medicine. It's been interesting.
Cool. Well, we don't have any live viewers, so no reason to do this after show. I'm gonna go and shut down OBS. I'm gonna shut down the stream and shut down OBS if nobody else is here.